I suppose it's understandable, if not logical, that the morning after Michael Vick throws for 4 touchdowns and runs for 2, people line up on either side of the fence. Either you are a second chance person or you are not a second chance person ever, ever, ever. Joining us on the phone lines is somebody we talked to a couple of years ago. Dan Shannon from PETA joins us on the AT&T hotline. Find out what's possible with the nation's fastest mobile broadband network, AT&T. Rethink possible. Good morning, Dan. Long time no talk.
Yeah, good morning, guys. How are you?
Which side of the fence do you reside? Second chance person or never a second chance person when it comes to Michael Vick?
Well, at PETA and, me personally, we do believe in the possibility of second chances. Obviously, since he's come out of prison, the guy has, he said all the right things. He, hopefully he's doing all the right things. Time will tell. He certainly seems to be on the right direction. Personally, I feel like, and PETA feels like, a guy who admitted to doing all the horrible things that he did to animals isn't the kind of guy that we'd like to see people cheering on the football field. And as you know, we advocated that he not be allowed back into the league.
Ever? You didn't want him back in the league ever, Dan?
Well, at the time, certainly when he came right back out, he hadn't, to that point, shown, he had a chance to show that maybe he had changed or that maybe he had learned his lesson. At the time, we advocated that the league, maintain what they were doing at the time, which was his indefinite suspension. But you know what, guys? At some point, you've got to accept the fact that, and we have to accept the fact that the league chose to do that. We accept that. That's the way that things played out. What we're doing now is really trying to shift our focus isn't on Michael Vick at this point. There's 40,000 other guys out there allegedly who are doing exactly the same sorts of things that he did. They're not all famous NFL quarterbacks and they don't have a household name, but they're just as their crimes are just as heinous.
So you have not seen the numbers of dogfighting go down since 2007 when Michael Vick came to the forefront?
Well, actually, I'll tell you what we've seen since then is a huge increase in the number of reports that local police departments and local humane societies have gotten about, tips, that kind of thing, about the dogfighting ring. We've seen increases in investigations. We've seen increases in arrests. Those numbers that I quoted, obviously, it's speculation. There's not like a census that says, so are you a dogfighter? So you don't know exactly how many guys are out there. But it all seems that it's going in a good direction. And it is a positive thing that can be taken away about all this.
What
I'll tell you, in terms of Michael Vick getting a second chance, if he is serious and he's going to speak out against dogfighting, he's going to be an advocate for animals. He said that he was going to do that. Frankly, I haven't heard too much of that from him, but, there's still time. That would be a good thing in the fight against dogfighting. And, again, that's something positive that can come out of all
Don't you owe, a debt of gratitude to Michael Vick? I mean, no one knew much about dogfighting. It certainly didn't make the cover of too many magazines. I mean, there was just they were in the shadows. There were just these degenerates who fought dogs, and now you had this famous guy who was in the spotlight, and now he's contrite, now he's speaking out against it. Isn't he the greatest spokesman you could ever hope for?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think a guy like Michael Vick, who, was there, he did those sorts of things, he grew up in the sort of community where it was common, his voice speaking out against dogfighting is certainly going to be stronger than, a guy like me, for instance. He could, I think, as you said, do a lot to raise awareness about all this. That being said, he obviously did a lot of harm in his own personal life based on what he participated in. But the whole media coverage that it got and the hoopla and the outrage that did come out as a result of it absolutely has put a spotlight on this, cruel underground industry. And that is a positive thing in the long run.
We're talking with Dan Shannon, PETA spokesperson. Where were the coast-to-coast protests? Where were the large gatherings at every place Michael Vick was supposed to be? Did those ever materialize, even for a short period of time, Dan?
After the decision was made that Michael Vick was going to be reinstated in the NFL, we had a dialogue with the NFL about this. We were aware of the decision that they made and why they made it. At some point, you've just got to accept the fact that we may have wanted a different outcome, but that wasn't what happened in this case, and you shift your energies again towards guys who aren't named Michael Vick, they're named Michael Jones or Michael Smith, but are out there doing exactly the same thing. At some point, protesting a guy who used to fight dogs isn't as effective as protesting guys who still are doing it. And that's what we had to get out there and do, and that's what we've been doing the past couple of years.
As far as you know, did the NFL make any donation to PETA after this situation took place?
No, don't say.
No,
no.
I wouldn't have minded, but no, that didn't.
But they didn't buy you off, right?
No, certainly not.
Okay.
They must.
I'll tell you what. I know that Michael Vick, as a result of his court order, was forced to make a pretty sizable donation to the
SPCA.
care of the dogs who
Right.
he abused. So that was something positive.
Right. So do you think the year and a half in federal prison wasn't enough?
Personally, I think that the laws that protect animals in cases like this in this country are a little weak. We've seen guys who have done similar things get longer sentences.
You've seen guys in dogfighting rings get more than a year and a half in Leavenworth?
Yeah, not. I mean, we're not talking like 10, 20 years or anything, but a little bit more than that. Yeah, I think the maximum in a case like his is about 24 months, and we've seen people get that. I think it was in the right ballpark. Maybe it could have been a little bit longer. But at the end of the day, the important thing to us is not necessarily how much time one individual guy spends in prison. That's not what's going to end dogfighting in this country. It is, people being aware of the issue and taking note of it. And as you pointed out, the Michael Vick case has allowed people to think more about it, to be more aware of it. People know what kind of warning signs to look for in their communities. If a neighbor of theirs maybe has 15 pit bulls living in cages in their backyard, that might not have raised a red flag before. Right.
Hey,
now.
I'm just curious. What do you think when a pit bull rips the face off a 2-year-old kid and they euthanize the pit bull? Do you think that's just and fair?
Yeah, I mean, what else are you going to do? Unfortunately, I mean, you think poor kid, and then you think, way further down in the thought process, the poor animal. Animals usually hurt people and attack people because they've been abused themselves. Obviously, your heart goes out to the victim, the human victim in a case like that. But you also got to, you got to hold a human being accountable for an animal's behavior. At the end of the day, these animals aren't necessarily, no animal is born bad. In our opinion, animals get abused same way that people do, and they have. They can become violent the same way that a human being can if they've suffered abuse. So you got to look at, a human being who might be responsible in a case like that.
So what are you having for Thanksgiving?
What am I having?
Yeah.
We obviously do a vegan Thanksgiving in the Shannon household. I'm from the Boston area originally. We have something called tofurkey, which is like a soy-based turkey product, but.
What?
Maybe that it's better than it sounds. I'll tell you that.
A soy-based turkey product, so it doesn't involve any turkey. Was it?
That's right. It's like a roast. It's good. It doesn't sound delicious. They need to change the name of the product.
Can you carve it?
Yeah. You carve it up, and but you know what? All the sides you got your stuffing, you got your mashed potatoes, you got your gravy. All that stuff can be made vegetarian.
Dan, how many people do you have to invite over for Thanksgiving to get like 3 to show up with that meal?
We have 6 people at my house. My parents host me and my wife when we come back up to the New England area. My sister's there too. Most of the people in my family are vegetarian at this point. So you know what? I'll tell you, there's millions of Americans who are vegetarian now. Vegetarian Thanksgivings are pretty common. All the food websites and the food shows, they all talk about, okay, how do you provide a vegetarian meal for your guests at Thanksgiving. So
see, I have a big heart, but I'm compromising. I'm no longer going to kill vegetables. I'm just going to kill animals.
All right, there you go. That's a step in the right direction.
Right.
Hey, Dan, we'll leave you with this positive thought. One of the texters say, surprisingly, this guy doesn't sound like a complete freakazoid. So maybe that's why you're the spokesperson for
what
PETA.
What happens if a mosquito is on your arm and you're out in a warm summer night and mosquito's on your arm? What do?
I'll try to brush him off gently.
See, you are a nut.
I'm not going to hold it against
you.
You
brush the mosquito off gently and allow him to live to bite another day?
Well, look, if it's me or the mosquito, it might be a different story.
You savage.
I won't hold it against anybody.
All right, Dan, good talking to you again.
All right, guys.
What about like maggots and termites and stuff? They don't kill them either.
No. All living things.